Welcome back everyone to Beat the Game. My name's Steve, and today we're going to talk about the villain Klaw, and why do I keep losing against Klaw? But first of all, if you guys like my little videos, please share, like, subscribe, and keeps me motivated to do more. Alright, first things first, let's talk about Klaw. What is the main factor that we keep losing against Klaw on a normal basis? Like, and we're just talking about standard Klaw, and we'll also talk about expert Klaw. What makes Klaw so much more difficult than Rhino? Okay, now Rhino presented himself with some challenges, we noticed, but it was pretty simple. You know, if you could keep control of the main scheme, you're good. But Klaw offers way more challenges. And the main challenge is he's either going to be, in one turn, you're going to go from having one minion to having like 4 minions into play, or you're gonna try to spend a turn in alter ego, and then all of a sudden you're on stage 2 of the villains. He's schemed out. He's on stage 2. There's 2 side schemes. There's like 4 villains, and it just explodes. So Klaw is very quick at coming at you in multiple ways. So first of all, his scheme, even on level 1, his scheme starts at 2. His attack is pretty basic. It's at 0. But his scheme level at 2 is double what the Rhino was, showing. So, and plus the fact that we have a threshold of 6, that means if you start your turn in alter ego, even if it's on turn 1, you start at 0, it goes to 1, it automatically goes to 3, and the odds are, because there's actually 2 3 boost icons in his deck, that it might actually pop off on turn 1. And plus, because of the defense network, you have a minion into play, and if that minion happens to be able to scheme for 1, then you're popping off and going to the stage 2 of the villain scheme, and that is going to be more problematic because then you're just on the edge of losing already. So again, there's a lot of things that can happen for that, and there's a lot of things that are that come at you pretty fast. So one of the things also is, if we look at Klaw on stage 2, so if you do start on expert, what does this happen? Well, 2 things. On stage 1, for stage 1, you also start with the defense network in play. So you already start with a side scheme. With Rhino, if you are playing on stage 1, you don't have a side scheme. You just can go straight to face to Rhino. But now you're facing with a minion, and we're going to look at the minions that are going to be in Klaw's deck, and also you're going to be coming up against a side scheme that prevents you from removing threat from the main scheme. So that is 2 different things that are very, very problematic with Klaw. All right, now if you do start on expert, you are going to start not only with 1 side scheme, but 2 side schemes and an additional minion. So there you go. Now you're like, whoa. Now this is way more intense than I thought it would be. I'm starting in play with 2 side schemes. Yes. So you're starting with Immortal Klaw, which has an accelerator, and you have a crisis icon. So that means the main scheme is going up by 2 per turn. So that gives you only 3 turns before this main scenario pops. So again, wow, that's coming at you pretty fast. And Klaw also has a crazy ability that says when he attacks you, you give him an extra boost card. So that means he's not only going through the deck faster, but he's coming at you from all directions. Threat is an issue, and then damage is an issue. And if you're playing on expert and you go to stage 3, well, now he schemes not only for 2, but he schemes for 3. So that means most likely if he schemes once, you might just pop that scenario. And if he goes to the next stage on 8, obviously you get to reveal another villain. You put into play another minion. So, and then he schemes for 3. But if he schemes for 3, there's an acceleration. It's going up to 4. It's very, very likely that if you get an advance, it's game over. All right. So that is why Klaw is coming at you from so many different places and so quickly that it's going to be problematic. But let's try to break that down, and let's take a breather, and by all means, Klaw is not impossible to beat. We just got to figure out what are the things that we can try to do to make him beat us less. All right. So first things first, let's look at the minions that can come into play from his ability. All right. So if we're just playing the basic deck, there is a possibility of 8 minions coming into play. All right. And these minions are pretty, yeah, they're okay. 5 of them are pretty mean. And then there's 4 that are mean, and then 5 that are just like whatever. So the ones that are just whatever is these armored guards. There's 3 in the deck. So most likely you'll either get an armored guard as your first minion, or you might get one of these weapons runners. Okay, they come in the tough, there's 0-3s. These guys, they have the tough status card. So yeah, they block you from starting to hit the boss directly. Is it a big hindrance? It's not that bad. The weapons runner, and something to explain, the weapons runner, if they come into play, they have the surge word, but the surge only triggers if they are revealed as an encounter card. So if it is put into play, the surge will not trigger. So please don't start dealing yourself extra encounter cards on what if you get that as your first minion. All right, now the bad ones. All right, so let's look at the least worst minions that come in. All right, so I think the least problematic that shows up is Whirlwind. All right, so if he comes into play, it's not a big deal. Yes, he has an attack of 2 in 6 health, scheme of 1. If you're playing solo, it's okay. It's not that bad. The other one that's not too bad is Melter. Melter is another minion from the Masters of Evil. He has an attack of 3, a scheme of 1. So they're not very schemy, but they are pretty strong in terms of attack. And this one, you have to block with an ally. So if there's an ally in play, then you have to block with him. So that is a little annoying. Now the other one, the big bad guy, is Tiger Shark. So he's probably the toughest one, but he's not the worst one. He starts with 6, and then after he attacks, you give him a tough status card. So that is why it's painful, because he's that consistent 3 damage that if you don't deal with him, he's going to come out and he's going to kill you. Yep. But the worst one, in my opinion, is Radioactive Man. And he comes into play, and when he attacks you, you have to discard a card at random. And that is what I believe is the worst minion to get on turn 1. Everyone else is like, okay, it's either damage or it's a little of this, a little of that. But this guy is just a pain, because if you can't deal the 7 damage, if you can't take him out on your turn 1, then it's just going to start locking you down. Because remember, all heroes have a hand size of 5, except for Spider-Man, that he might have a hand size of 6 because the villain attacks. But everyone else has a hand size of 5, and that means you're going down to a hand size of 4. And if you're playing She-Hulk, well, then you're going down to 3 cards. And the worst part about this is it's a random card. So that is just brutal. So obviously that means you can't plan ahead, you can't calculate. You're just like, whatever, I'm just gonna have to discard something and hope it's not the card I really wanted to play. So in my opinion, these are like the worst minions to get. So the other thing as well, coming into this game that we have not seen yet, and that is something that's super disruptive, is the star icon. What is that star icon? Well, this is that little token here. It is not a boost, okay? It is not a boost value. It has a boost value of 0, but it does have a negative effect. And then the boost effect for, let's say, Radioactive Man is discard a card at random. So whatever he does as a minion, he will also do as a boost card. So that is also super problematic. And if you're only playing with the core set, you won't be able to do anything about this until you buy the Black Widow pack, which has a card called Target Acquired that cancels these little star icons when you are in hero form. But until then, you are stuck. Now, this is probably the worst, as tag team with this guy, which says exhaust all your allies. So this one, exhaust all your allies. This one, discard a card at random. Now, just to clarify something, if you have already blocked with an ally, the attack will already be blocked. So it's not like you have to, the attack will go undefended. Okay, so you have to defend. You have to actually exhaust your ally to block. So this is coming out after. So it's going to exhaust every other ally you have. And if you only have the one, well then whatever. But that's why it's a little mean. This one only gives a tough status card, and this one only deals 1 damage to each hero. So whatever. And then you have the weapons runner that they come into play. So I actually like having these weapons runner come into play. It's it's not as painful as the surge. I'd rather have them come into play than having them surge. All right, and then the other thing is the worst one. It is the Sonic Boom. By God, are you happy when those go by? So Sonic Boom, if that attack deals damage to your character, exhaust your character. So that is super frustrating, especially if you have a character like She-Hulk where you just want to take the damage and then he attacks you for 0. And well, the thing is, you can actually be lucky. On standard mode, he might get a boost of 0 and a weapons runner. That means he dealt no damage. So that's actually pretty good. But if you're playing on expert, it's a minimum of 1 damage, and then you're like, oh man. And to understand the statistics, I did put a little chart here. Let me just go back and fetch it. Just to break it down. All right, so Klaw actually has 5 cards that have 0 boost icons. There's 8 cards that have this star icon, which is technically is 0, but with a negative effect. Okay, so that's 13 cards that do nothing, like a boost of 0. There are 7 cards with a boost of 1, and there are 8 cards on standard and 10 cards on expert with boosts of 2, and then 2 cards on standard with a boost of 3. And 3 cards with a boost of 3 on expert play. So, like I said, the odds of him hitting you, and that is why it's also very weird with Klaw, is you might have an attack, he attacks you, and it deals 1 damage. And then you have another attack, he deals 6 damage in a turn. And you're like, wow. It is super inconsistent. It is super variable. So, one thing I would say, and to really, really help to know when you should defend and when you shouldn't, is look at the encounter deck discard pile. Okay, so in the first turn, maybe it's a gamble, but after a couple turns, definitely pay attention to that discard pile. Take a look at how many boost icons have gone through. If you see, oh wow, his Sonic Converter's gone. All right, the 2 Sonic Booms are gone. All right, so most I won't get exhausted, so I don't need to defend. So I can still plan. I can still plan my attack, but if you see that there's, only these little 0 boost cards and you haven't seen a lot of the 2s and the 3s, be prepared for a big attack. This might be the turn that you want to put that ally in front of that attack. All right. So this is how you have to kind of beat the game in that way, is be aware of what is in the discard pile at all times. Just keep a close eye on that. And that goes the same for when the game starts. When the game starts, you have to discard cards until you reveal until you find a minion. So all the other cards are going to stay in the discard pile. Now, there's a pros and there's cons. So the pro is, oh man, maybe Shadows of the Past is gone. Maybe those 2 Sonic Booms and the advances are gone. Oh, cool. The bad thing is he just went through half his deck. And then those cards are going to be coming really, really fast. You're safe for a couple turns, but those cards are going to be coming in fast, especially because he gets these double boost icons. So that is the first thing that you should be aware of when playing against Klaw, because there's a lot of stuff going on with Klaw. So that's why we're trying to break it down here in little sections here. But the first thing is be aware of that discard pile and what has gone through the deck and what things that he can actually do against you. All right, now let's look at the mean cards or the easy cards. Let's go into threat level. All right, so let's start going through the cards. Let me just grab my pile here. All right, So the easy cards, easy peasy cards. All right. So the encounter deck, it's gonna come out. Stuff is gonna come out. These are I call these the breather cards. The cards that are not too shabby. That you get it. It's like a break. All right. Armored guards. You get an armored guard, whatever. They come in with a tough. All they do is they slow you down on damage. But it still gives you time enough to breathe. It gives you time to deal with the side schemes. It gives you time enough to deal with the main scheme threat or the side scheme threats. It gives you time. So those armored guards, and plus they scheme for 0. So if you want to go down to alter ego that turn and there is no threat on the defense network, well, don't hesitate. You can still do that. It's going to be a 50-50 gamble if the side scheme is going to pop or not. Now, there's two things you might say. Well, Steve, I know I'm going to get the advance and then I'm going to get another minion. Yeah, you might, but the next stage is 8 per player. So it gives you a lot more breathing room. It gives you that 2 extra threat, and that 2 extra threat, it makes a huge difference. Because again, I'm not one that likes to stay in hero form the entire time. I don't mind taking the risk here, but I always try to calculate my risk when I go down. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But I do like going to alter ego against Klaw, especially if there's only an armored guard, especially if there's no threat on, and I've dealt with my my crisis icon, which I have dealt with defense network, and I've dealt with immortal Klaw. I know, like, I have maybe a 60-70% chance that it's not going to flip. And that's good, because then I can always take care of it on the next turn. Okay? Even though I don't need to heal, going to alter ego is going to slow him down, because instead of revealing 2 boosts, he's only revealing 1. So that again is a kind of way to slow him down without being too worried about the main scheme. All right. Now the other cards that are, I call them break cards, all right, are the sound manipulations. Sound manipulations, as long as you've dealt 1 damage to Klaw and you go down to alter ego, you'll never be afraid of this card. All right, it's an easy card. He just heals, whatever. Damage will come. That is not a problem. But having him heal for 1 or 2 damage in early game or even in late game, as long as he's taking damage, you don't care. This card is a break, is an easy card. Don't worry about it. If somebody's playing Spider-Man, do not cancel this card. That is easy peasy. The only time where this card becomes dangerous is if you are in hero form and you are at low health. Now that's another thing that can kill you. Sound manipulation. I remember so many games, and I think I have a lot of them on camera, where I'm down to like, oh dude, I took a big hit, now I'm down to 2. If I get sound manipulation, I lose. And then you reveal and it's sound manipulation. You're like, no! So one thing I would say with Klaw, try not to stay at 2. Try not to be at 2 health, because that is something that can happen and that can just take you out unexpectedly. So, and then you can make these educated decisions. You can see with the encounter discard policy, oh, okay, yeah, that card is not there anymore. Okay, I'm safe even though I'm at 2 health. I think I should be okay. All right, perfect. Cool. So this is, again, a break card, level 0 threat, level 1 threat. Right, super simple. Now the next one is a solid sound body. So this again is not a big concern. It is annoying if you are playing leadership, because it means that your allies will not be wanting to deal damage directed to Klaw, which again there's worse things. There's worse things for that. But I call it a break card because you can always take care of that later. Also, if your character does massive damage, like I'm talking about Spider-Man's web kick, I'm talking about the repulsor blast or the supersonic punches for Iron Man. You're dealing 8 damage and taking 1. It's not gonna be too damaging. So it's an extra damage. It doesn't increase his attack or anything. So for me, this is a very low priority card, unless you're playing leadership and you intend on doing all the damage with your allies. But aside from that, this is a very easy peasy card. All right, now we're gonna look at the level 2 danger cards. All right, and there's a bunch of these. All right, There's a whole bunch of level 2 danger cards. The assaults, obviously, because Klaw has five chances to attack you out of turn. All right, so this is a level 2 danger I call, because again it accelerates his deck, because he's going to attack you and it's going to trigger 2 extra boost cards that are going to come in, or it's going to surge into something else if you're an alter ego. So level 1 danger. So again, it's not the worst card, but it's still a little annoying. Now the other 2 cards that can make him attack are called Claw's Vengeance. All right. So again, if you're gonna block with an ally, I recommend waiting for a second attack. Okay, unless you're playing Nick Fury and you have a few allies. And again, I'm saying wait, because this one, if it deals damage to you, you have to place a threat on the main scheme. So often this will probably pivot around 4 or 5, and putting that extra threat is just going to make it go over and then get another minion. So I think this one you want to kind of be careful with. All right, now the reason why I said do this with the other one is only if you saw what's his face, Melter as a boost card earlier. He was discarded earlier, that exhausts all the allies. If you have seen Melter, you can kind of take the attack and be like, okay, whatever. Especially if you saw also those sonic booms in the discard pile. Again, all this is always dependent on what is in that discard pile. What are the odds? And knowing what's in that discard pile is going to really help with these decisions. Against Klaw, like I said, it's placing 1 threat on the main. If you have threat under control, if you are Justice player, then don't care. It's not. That's why it's a very low priority card for me. It's not a game ending card. What it is annoying though is if you are an alter ego, it's gonna discard cards it's gonna make you discard a random card from your hand. So that is another way that Klaw has to disrupt your plans. So losing cards from your hand is super, super hurtful. It's not that bad because you are an alter ego, so some of the characters you can actually draw more cards, or you have free resources, so that extra card. The only really annoying part is it's at random, so again, it can kind of mess up your big plans when that happens. So these are, again, things to consider before going to alter ego. Did I see Claw's Vengeance? All right. Aside from that, there's a 5th attack card when you are in hero form, but I'm going to save it for later because I categorize it as a threat above, because, all right, the other things that are very annoying are the weapons runner, and there's 2 of them in the deck. Now, why is those weapons runners so annoying? Well, it's because they surge. That is why. They're only 1/1s with 2 health, but the fact that they surge, I would much rather them come in as a boost card than as an encounter card. That's just me. It basically is the same thing, because if they come in as a boost, you're going to get an encounter card. Or if they come in as an encounter card, you're going to still get another encounter card. So it doesn't really matter. The thing is, once they come in as a boost, they will also attack you after the villain attack. So it really, that's why they're still categorized like level 2 threats. They're just annoying. They have that 1 scheme, but they're very easy to kill. So these guys are the weapons runner. And then again, caught off guard. The caught off guard for me is just annoying. So make sure you build around that. Make sure that you have something to protect. If you have an Avengers Mansion, make sure you have something that costs 1 or 2 that you can discard, so you don't lose that helicarrier or that Avengers Mansion from seeing caught off guard. All right. So these are just things that you just be aware of. If it's in the discard pile, you don't need to worry about putting extra support cards just to protect that. But if you haven't seen it, it can come up. So again, play the odds. All right. So these are the level 2 threats. Now let's look at. Oh wait, actually, there's 2 more level 2 threats, and I was almost forgetting them. All right. Level 2 threats. These are a couple of minions. Melter and Whirlwind. If they come into play, they're just, you want to get rid of them. They're not a priority, but you definitely want to get rid of them sooner rather than later, because again, they have a high attack value, attack of 3 and attack of 2. That's almost as much as what Klaw can do you in a turn. So getting rid of those minions as fast as possible will really, really help you against Klaw. But again, sometimes you have to pick and choose. If you have enough damage to kill a weapons runner or a melter, choose the melter. Always. Who cares about the weapons runner? He's only attacking for one. But again, if you have depending what you have, all right. But if you have a crisis icon, not a crisis icon, if you have that Illegal's Arm Factory that has an extra encounter card, well, prioritize that before prioritizing a minion. All right. You can always heal damage, but those extra encounter cards, sometimes they'll overwhelm you. All right. So these guys, again, priority 2. Now let's look at our priority 3s. All right. So let's go back into these guys, Tiger Shark and Radioactive Man. Now, the reason why Tiger Shark is in the priority 3s and not priority 2s is just because he gets that tough status card. That means he's just consistently there every time he attacks you. Just to clarify a couple things in the rules, if you are playing Black Panther, Tiger Shark will attack you. Tiger Shark will take the retaliate, and then, because retaliate is a constant effect, it will trigger the retaliate first, and then he will get the force response. Okay, so just if you're not too sure about how the timing works, anything that is a consistent thing, so retaliate is one of those consistent things, it's always there, so that is going to go, there's no response to that, there's no force response, retaliate. Okay, so maybe, but let's say you're not playing, maybe you're playing She-Hulk and you playing protection and you have the electrostatic armor. Well, then it's going to be different, because you're going to defend, he's going to get tough, and then your electrostatic armor is going to trigger and then get rid of the tough. All right, so there's a couple little timing explanations here, if that can help. Radioactive Man, why he's such a threat? Because if you don't get rid of him right away, he will make you discard cards from your hand at random, which is super painful. Really, really annoying. All right. So these are not game-ending things, but they do add to that overwhelming effect that you can always lose out of nowhere with this. And then most of the times, what's going to make you lose out of nowhere is Gang Up. Yeah, Gang Up is that one card that is just going to wreck your life. If you have chosen to ignore the minions, so then you can, even if you have Whirlwind and 1 Armored Guard, so that's an extra 3 damage plus Claw dealing you damage, and maybe putting in a Weapons Runner, so that's an extra minion. So because there's all these different effects that can happen, you can just get completely wrecked from Gang Up. So that is why Gang Up is a priority 3 or a level danger 3 card, all right, in this scenario, because Claw can throw a lot of minions out there in a short amount of time. So getting rid of most of these minions is going to be your main focus. So side schemes first. But again, this is always going to depend on what hero you're playing. All right, if you're playing a hero that is that's going to stay in hero form a lot, then the minions should always be your priority. If you're playing a flippy floppy character like She-Hulk that wants to flip flop, and then you probably want to take care of the side schemes, and then because when she flips, she can take care of the minions with the free damage. But again, so just depending on the character you're playing, it's always going to be different where your priorities are going to lie. But all right, so, and it's going to be up to you to figure it out as you're playing. I'm giving you a little bit of advice here on what I feel are like the main dangers in this game, and then it's up to you, depending on the character, the aspect you're playing, to really put that into consideration while you're making those decisions. All right, so this is just to help you get the most informed decisions. All right, then the other ones that are pretty problematic, the Masters of Mayhem. Okay, so these cards, again, it's not a super danger, but it is super annoying. It's a level 3. It means you're going to go get one of those big minions that you probably just killed. All right, so the only time where this doesn't do anything is if all 4 of them are in play. So if all 4 are in play, and you're an alter ego, then you're probably losing anyway. But if all 4 are in play, they all attack you. So that's why I call it a level 3 danger, because they have to attack you. So each Masters of Evil minion attacks the hero it's engaged with. So, and if you're an alter ego, you go get another one. So even if there's only one in play and the other ones are in the discard pile and you killed them already, you have to go fetch another one because it didn't attack. So as long as one Masters of Evil attacks, so if you're playing a 2-player game and one of them is like Tiger Shark is going after the other guy, then you're fine. You're not going to have to go fetch another one. So that's actually a saving grace. But if you're playing solo and you're alter ego, well, you're tough luck, kid. Go get another dude and put him into play. So often I'll suggest to go get Melter or Whirlwind. Those are the kind of two easier ones. But if Radioactive Man is in your is still in the deck, I would suggest to take Radioactive Man if you have the resources to take him out. Just because you don't want to have that boost card that comes in and makes you discard a card. Anyway, that's it. So that is why I put these up higher in the priorities. Same thing, Masters of Evil, Side Scheme, and Illegal's Arm Factory. All the Side Scheme technically, like, where's the other Side Scheme? All the Side Schemes. So all the Side Schemes here, there's like four Side Schemes in this game. Masters of Evil is pretty bad because, you know, it goes and fetches you another Masters of Evil minion. So that's super annoying. And if by any chance they're already all in the discard pile, it's going to give you an acceleration. It's an acceleration that might give you another acceleration. So that is super annoying. So that's why it's there. And we already know that Klaw goes through his deck super fast. So that is going to be one card to really get rid of. Again, if you're staying in hero form a lot or you're playing Justice and that came out at the beginning of the game, sometimes you might just say, well, I can deal with threat. My character is really strong at threat removal. Maybe I'll just leave that Side Scheme there and whatever. At least I know it's never coming back out. I'm going to deal with an extra acceleration for the rest of the game. And in multiplayer games, I always suggest leave that card there, because then you know you're never going to get it again. So for me, an acceleration of 1 in multiplayer is not that bad, but having to deal with the same things over and over, yeah, it gets redundant sometimes. Illegal's Arm Factory, definitely want to get rid of that right away. Same thing for Immortal Klaw, because you don't want to have to deal an extra 10 damage when you can just remove 3 threat per player. So I think 3 threat or 10 damage, I think 3 threat is a lot easier to remove than dealing an extra 10 damage. But depending on the character you're playing. All right. And then Defense Network, well, that's just to avoid you from losing to Scheme. Because if you didn't take care of Defense Network on your in the first couple of turns, it can come back, because, you know, if he's scheming out and you never took care of the Defense Network, that's on you, bro. That's on you. So you want to get rid of these Side Schemes. Always a priority to get rid of the Side Schemes. The reason why, because of the advances. You know, there's only 2 instances that Klaw can scheme out of turn, which is very, very fortunate for us, because this is just Ultron. Just Klaw is going to scheme, and then most of the time when he schemes, if you kept the main scheme under control, you only have a 30% chance of it popping. Okay, and if it's on stage 8, if it's on stage 2 with the which you call the Secret Rendezvous, the odds are, if you're on stage 1 or stage 2 of Klaw, it's not going to pop. He can go all the way up to 5, all right, maybe 6 if you're starting to turn an alter ego. The only time where this becomes dangerous is if you are an alter ego, he's on stage 2, and you haven't seen these advances, then be careful. All right, before really think about, do I really need to go on alter ego this turn, or can I wait to see if I see those advances go by? So those are where the decisions lie, where you can easily lose the game. But then it comes down to a little bit more than luck. It's just mostly, when you're just dealing on this, it's mostly luck and probabilities, you know. So all right, so that is it for these levels of dangers. And now the highest danger cards. Obviously the most annoying cards are the expert cards, but if you're only, and I'm adding these only if you are playing on expert. If you're not playing expert, then these don't matter and you don't care about these. But if you are playing on expert, obviously Shadows of the Past, why. It's always one of the most highest danger cards there. And then the sonic booms. Oh man, those sonic booms. These are so easy to kick your butt. All right. So two things with there's only two sonic booms in the deck. So that's the only saving grace. The bad thing is he goes through his deck so fast you feel like you see him every other turn or something like that. Especially if you're playing in multiplayer. But the sonic booms, here's the deal. If you have an ally, okay, and your character is exhausted, you can only exhaust your ally, and then you don't need to spend the 3 resources. But if you are exhausted and you don't have an ally that you can exhaust, then you absolutely have to pay as much of that as possible. So when I started playing this, I was playing this round. Oh, I'm already exhausted. Okay, whatever, no biggie. And then when I found out that, oh no, Steve, you have to pay, I'm like, oh man, zoot. But again, these are things like we interpret wrong, or we all make mistakes when we start the game. So when these are revealed, so if you're playing leadership and you have like a bunch of allies and you have a big turn coming up, then I would suggest, pay those resources and whatever, nip it in the butt, and then don't lose your turn so you can control threat, you can do some damage, you can do stuff. But if, you only have your character up, you don't have any allies, and there's nothing worrisome on the main scheme, or there's no side schemes in play, and you get that, then just exhaust and just be like, whatever. All right. So that's the main thing about this card, is like it can be super disruptive, or it could just be like, whatever. Don't spend the resources if you don't need to. Again, be aware of what's going on during the game. Be aware of what's happening. What is a priority? What can make you lose the game? So this is not a card that can make you lose the game. It's just a card that is just going to slow you down. And that's why Klaw is so brutal, because he just slows you down and taxes you on everything. All right. And to continue on that theory, this is one of the worst cards. This is one that you really want to get rid of unless you're playing on with leadership and you always have an ally to block or throw in front of them. Then don't worry about this card. Or anyone else that is not playing leadership and does not have a very high defense, the Sonic Converter gives him a +1. You need 3 resources to get rid of that. Now, here's a little tip. If you are going to get rid of it, all right, and you see that his deck is brand spanking new, get rid of it. But if you see he's only got like 6-7 cards left in his deck, okay, in the encounter deck, then keep it in play. Don't deal with it yet. Once he goes through the encounter deck, then spend the resources, because then you're not going to have to deal with it for another complete deck pass. So those are little tricks that you can do that makes the game a little bit easier, because if you get rid of it and he only has like 2 cards left in his deck, well, first of all, it's a boost of 3, so that can come back and just kill you from nowhere. The other thing is it might just come right back into play, and then you have to deal with it again. So you kind of wasted your resources to get rid of it, to have to get rid of it again. So those are like some of the best tips and tricks that I can tell you to try to help you not lose the game against Klaw. All right, so Klaw, he's really a step above. Once you fought Rhino and you think, oh man, so easy, and then you get into a battle against Klaw that comes at you very fast with side schemes, with guards and everything, and that puts him into play, it is a whole new ball game. So you really have to adapt your strategy of game. All right, very rarely you'll be able to just rush through the villain unless you're extremely lucky and get a weapons runner as your first minion, and then you're playing a super aggressive character that you can just kind of rush through on standard. But even on stage 3, he comes in and then he has a tough status card. So then you're still losing some tempo, because on stage 3 he becomes tough. So, but once you get rid of his tough, he's pretty simple. He's only got 22 health. But again, Immortal Klaw, if you are playing on expert, you still have to deal with that side scheme, or else he's got 28 health. So again, Klaw, really don't look at him as I want to kill him super fast, because Klaw takes a little bit more finesse than Rhino. All right, so if you're just moving from Rhino to Klaw, and this is your first experience against Klaw, he's probably going to kick your butt regardless of what character you're playing, because you're going to go in with a mentality of like, oh, this is what Rhino was so easy, like I can just do this and just try to beat him up real fast. But you will find that he comes in with a lot of surprises, and he can overwhelm you if you are not paying attention to what he can do. So, all right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this will help you in the long run beat the game. All right, Ultron coming next.